So today we're going to be talking about cracking the hidden job market. We're going to look at the hidden job market versus the overt job market. We're going to talk about the 7 stages of the job search. We're going to talk about measuring success in this plan, and we're going to talk about managing your leads. There's lots of information in this presentation, so you want to be sure and make a copy of the PDF version once you get it. There will be a slide at the end of the presentation that will have the reference material in it as well. You also want to look at this as advanced networking. This is a system that's going to help you tap into areas where you can expand your job search exponentially. So the first thing we want to look at is, what is the hidden job market? It is the market where most jobs change hands without being advertised, and jobs that may be advertised go to people within the company or organization. At least half of all jobs that change hands go to someone who did not respond to a posted opening. Only about a third of open jobs are ever posted anywhere. So the way you want to look at this is, industries are always hiring for a myriad of reasons. They have retirements, they have injuries, promotions within the company. Even if a company is laying off in one area, it's possible that they could be hiring in a completely different area of the company. Also, finding a candidate before having to go through HR is ideal for most hiring managers and the potential candidate. This way, they don't have to wade through potentially thousands of candidates, and it cuts down on competition the candidate will have to deal with as well. So if a hiring manager can locate and hire a candidate without having to go through the process of looking at thousands of applications, they would much rather do this than that. Second, the overt job market is known as the public job market. The classic version is the sign in the shop window reading "Help Wanted." This is also going to include classified ads and online postings. Now, this particular market is probably the least productive search methodology. If this is the only search methodology that you're using, you are going to have a lot harder time finding the positions that you want to find. Posted openings, kind of a fool's gold as far as the job search goes. Job seekers using this methodology always overestimate their own attractiveness, and they underestimate the competition. So the first thing you need to do is you need to dust off your network. You have to make friends before you need friends. So talking to people, getting more social, raising your online profile, increasing your activity within your professional associations, these are all things that if you haven't done them in a while, you need to get back and get into this habit again. You want to create or update any social networking or social profiles that you might have, such as LinkedIn. You want to go in and start increasing your connections. You want to go back in, start getting recommendations from your colleagues. Commenting on industry-related blogs is another way to raise your online profile. Using YouTube, present yourself as an expert on a subject. Mainly sticking to business subjects is another good way to raise your online profile. Building reading recommendation lists on Amazon or Barnes & Noble is also another way to raise your profile. Forwarding articles of interest to friends and colleagues is another way to get your name in front of them and to get them thinking about you. And then you want to start frequenting professional meetings, join committees in those groups that you belong to, etc. This is another way to raise your profile. And you want to think about things people in the industry are doing and getting involved in those types of things. So the next thing we're going to look at are the different stages of the job search. And we were going to cover these in greater detail in the following slides. First thing you want to do is you want to identify your job targets. Then you're going to identify your raw leads that will lead you to these, that are involved in these targets. And then you're going to convert these raw leads into lists of names of specific people that might be able to help you as far as your job search. Then you're going to turn these names into appointments. And then once you get in front of them, you're going to, whether it be an informational interview or an actual job interview, you're going to sell yourself in the interview. Then the next step is you want to figure out how are you going to stay alive through the selection process, and then finally you're going to close the deal. So the first stage we're going to look at is identifying job targets. You can either choose an industry, which would be, for instance, commercial real estate, big box retail, or energy, or you want to target a function such as accounting, technical sales, midstream engineer. And then finally, you want to make sure that you discover the title of the job that you want. An editorial assistant versus an editor's assistant. Knowing the difference between these two makes you an insider. You want to pick a job type and go after it until you're sure that it's not for you, or you land a position. Talking to people doing that job right now is a great way to find out information about a particular industry, a particular function, or a particular job title. Being very specific is very important in this process because you want to really get down to the crux of what it is that you're looking for. The next thing you want to do is you want to identify raw leads. You want to try to have 100 leads at all times. And you're going to break these down into 3 categories. You're going to break them down into organizations, so these would be potential employers. The next category would be individual people, so every single person who could help you. And then finally, the last category is going to be ideas. So for instance, business XYZ just signed a big lease for a building. I wonder if I could get a list of other companies who've signed leases over the past 2 years. Or I wonder if I could turn my hobby of creating bonsai trees into a business. So any type of idea that could lead to creating a raw lead. And you want to try to have 100 of these leads at all times. And as contacts drop off, and you will go to others and cultivate other leads. Now, as far as getting the sources for these leads, they can come from anywhere. They can come from job postings, obviously, gossip that you overhear. You could look at the business news, job or career fairs, search engine expeditions. For example, going to Google and searching for recession-proof careers. You could look at online communities. You could look at real-life communities such as your church or a homeowners association, your golf buddies. You could look at former employers. You could look for sources at alumni associations, such as here at the University of Oklahoma. Of course, your friends, the faculty, your family, the University Career Center here at Career Services. So anything that you can think of as a source would be great for creating a raw lead. So the next stage is you want to convert these raw leads into a list of names. So you're going to divide them into 4 categories. First is going to be a hiring authority category. And these are people in the target industry or job who have the authority to hire you. The next category is the direct referral source. These are people in the target industry or function or job title or company who can refer or recommend you to a hiring authority. Third is going to be a center of influence. These are referred to as connectors or mavens. They know everything about a company or about an industry. Usually they're referred to as the person who knows where all the bodies are buried. So they're going to be not necessarily in a power position, but they've been in the industry or they've been in a company or they've been in that job title for a long time and they know a lot of things. And then final category is everyone else. This is going to be your barber, your creepy Uncle Bob, your hairdresser, your banker, anybody that you can think of that you could talk to about your job search. The next thing you want to do, research, research, research. You want to find information converting these raw leads into names anywhere that you can get it. So reference libraries, the Chamber of Commerce, online searches. You could tap into online data banks such as ZapData, Hoover's, Dun & Bradstreet. So you want to try to get this information anywhere, any way that you can. You want to have the mentality of beg, borrow, or steal. Be willing to do anything, almost anything, within boundaries, of course, to find out who you could tie to this raw lead that can help you with your job search. Next, after you turn these leads into names, your next step is to get in front of these individuals. You want to turn these names into appointments. So there's 5 rules that you want to follow. First, stop asking for a job. You don't want the contact to say no to you right up front, so you're asking for advice. Second, you want to be very precise about your career goal. You want a green job versus a large-scale wind turbine farm job. So be very precise about your career goal. Third, You want to avoid yes or no questions when you're talking to these individuals. Open queries will get you more information. 4, assume each and every contact has some gem of information. Expect wild connections because they are common, and you want to be sure and follow up on those gems. So if you get a gem of information, no matter how wild or improbable that you think it is, since you've contacted this individual, you need to follow up on that gem of information. You never know what it might turn into. And finally, contacting people is about information, not power. You're looking for the person who can give you the secret knock that gets you in the door. Individuals that are centers of influence are great at this. People want to help you. They want to give you advice. They want to help you move along the way. They don't want to have to tell you no. So that's why you want to stop asking for a job and start asking for advice. So the next thing you want to do is you want to kind of perform a triage. You want to set up a system for allocating your efforts. And you've got 5 objectives that you want to try to attain. First, you want to talk to people who hold the job you want next. Second, talk to as many direct referral sources as you can. Third, talk to centers of influence to see if they can guide you to people who match your first and secondary objectives. Activate your entire universe of possible contacts to try to get more information on direct referral sources and hiring authorities. 5th, and finally, talk to hiring authorities when it happens naturally and later when you know you're ready to get that job, when you can walk and talk like a duck. Your goals will depend on the type of contact you're reaching out to. If you're looking at a direct referral source, your contact with them needs to be short, purposeful, and efficient. It needs to be a targeted communication. You're looking for ideas, leads, and referrals. With a hiring authority, your goal is to arrange a brief face-to-face meeting, either for an informational interview or to critique your resume or for a specific job interview. How are you going to reach out to these people? Well, mainly there's 2 ways. There's telephone, and then there's email and letters. So when you're reaching out to people, when you're using the phone, you want to think of it as a telemarketing campaign. So your persistence and your patience are going to pay off. For instance, you want to call once a day for a week at the same time. This shows reliability. You always want to remain courteous. As a part of this process, you want to develop, if you haven't already, an elevator speech. Next, you want to keep your commitments. If you leave a message that says you're going to call at a specific time, then you want to call at that specific time. Next, you want to learn or you want to try to get better at getting around by gatekeepers. Now, gatekeepers are individuals that are designed to weed out people, to keep the supervisor or the hiring authority unencumbered with weight, so to speak. So there are no hard and fast rules with getting by gatekeepers. You have to get creative. You could call and directly ask for the contact. You could call early, possibly before the gatekeeper gets there. You could call a little bit late. You don't want to call too late. Or you could call during lunch. Sometimes during lunch there'll be a substitute gatekeeper, and they won't be as good as the normal gatekeeper. You might be able to get around them to get to that individual that you're trying to get to. You could use the presumptive call technique, which is kind of coming across that individual is expecting you to call and possibly get through the gatekeeper at that time. You could try to get a referral from on high. So basically utilizing an individual that's higher up in the company that has recommended that you speak to that individual could be one way to get you by the gatekeeper. And finally, you could ask the gatekeeper for their help. A lot of times this individual might be a center of influence, and they might be able to tell you if you're trying to get a hold of the right person, or maybe there's a different person that you might need to be getting in touch with. You want to be sure and cite your referral source whenever possible. Again, no use of yes or no questions. You could ask the question, did you get my letter or my resume? And there's 4 possible answers, and only one of those is good, which is yes. The other 3 are no, I don't know, I'm sure we did, but we're not hiring right now. So 3 of those answers are not good. So you want to try to stay away from yes or no questions. And then finally, you want to use an easy out clause. You want to make sure that that individual has time to talk to you. And if they don't, schedule a specific time where they could talk to you. Being persistent and patient, remaining courteous, having that ability to give them that easy out clause, that will go a long way in getting you in touch with the individual that you want to talk to. So using emails and letters. First, when people know who you are, you want to go ahead and get to the point with your email and get right to what it is that you would want them to do. You want to include a call to action, which is basically telling them, hey, I'm in the job search. I'm interested in talking to individuals that know how to do blank, or they could talk to me about blank. If you hear or if you know of this individual, let me know. Next, you need to ditch your resume. You only want to provide your resume when it's requested. And then you want to be sure and follow the instructions that you're given for submitting it. So if they tell you to attach it to your email, then attach it to your email. If they tell you to go to a website and upload it, then go to the website, fill out the profile and upload it, and then get back to them and let them know that you've done that. You want to utilize your elevator speech within the body of the email. You want to use a 3-point email system, basically, which follows kind of a pattern. First, you want to email them. If you get no response, wait 3 days, email them again. Again, if you get no response, wait 4 days and put a new top to the email. So for instance, Dr. Wilson, I may not have an accurate email address for you, and then send another email. If you don't get a response, then format your email into a regular business letter and send it to them the old-fashioned way with a stamp through the post office. Next, another form of email that you want to use is the railroad track letter. This is basically enlisting people without talking to them in your job search. Having them keep their ears to the railroad track and let you know if they hear anything that might be of interest to you. They only have to respond if they know anything, and you will follow up with them about every 10 days or so. And then finally, you want to enlist champions. The champions is a special subset of core helpers. Basically, this is an individual that thinks you hung the moon and can do no wrong and would do anything to help you with your job search. So enlisting them into this process is going to go a long way in helping you get what it is that you're looking for. Stage 5, once you get in front of these individuals or you get appointments to get in front of these individuals, you need to sell yourself in the interview. The first thing you want to do is prepare. There's basically 5 stages. You're going to prepare a portfolio of intelligence on the company. You want to prepare a list of skills and technical proficiencies of interest to the employer. Use a job description for that. Compile a list of character traits of interest to the employer as well. Make a list of questions you want to be sure to ask them. Make a list of behavioral questions you expect to be asked. Use the job description. And practice responding to these queries. Another thing that you could do as far as selling yourself in the interview is to kind of come up with a Hercules offer. Basically, this is an offer to perform some tasks for the hiring authority that they might mention they are having trouble completing, or completing a study or investigation that would be pertinent to the hiring manager while showcasing your skills during the interview. You definitely want to be putting together, especially if you're an experienced worker, a brag book, which is going to be paperwork or stats to back up your resume highlights. You could also create a portfolio of work if that is something that would be usable in the type of industry that you're trying to get into. And then finally, you want to be collecting recommendation letters, and you want to have those available. You don't necessarily want to offer them up, but if they are asked for, you can produce them. The next stage is staying alive through the process. Hiring can take time. If you don't get a ding letter, which is something telling you we've hired somebody else, please go away, then don't fade away. You want to set up a system or a schedule to tickle your contacts every 10 days or so. You need to find reasons to stay connected to the hiring manager. You can't be coming back to them every time with the same reason to be contacting them. You want to continue to create momentum. Continue asking questions about the company. making sure you follow up and you know when the decision is going to be made. And finally, staying alive for this process means you do not stop generating leads. Your lead generating process, turning them into contacts or names and getting in front of those people, that process never stops until you get an offer. Which leads us to closing the deal. You want to make sure you have a solid offer before you discontinue your search. Don't assume you're the one until you have something in hand that says it's so. Next, you want to be prepared to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. If you were not selected, don't sulk. More than likely, you were a finalist. Being in this process has produced a great networking contact. Press them for more leads, not only within the company, but from contacts they know. Let them know you were delighted that they considered you. Most importantly, don't fade away. Check in occasionally on a regular basis. There is always the chance the candidate hired might not work out, or the company might have something else in mind for you that they want you to interview for. It could be a position better than what you just interviewed for. So don't fade away, and be sure and try to advance your networking by using the individuals that you interviewed with to see if they have any other contacts or any other advice for you. Next, you want to be able to measure your success, and then you want to look at measuring what matters to you. There are some things that you're definitely going to want to measure in this process on a weekly basis. You want to keep up with new people that you've met face-to-face. You want to keep up with new people you've met online. You want to have new posted specific openings that you've applied for. You want to keep track of new organizations you found that might harbor a job you want. You want to try to schedule or keep track of the information interviews that you've set up for the week. You want to definitely keep track of screening interviews with real possible employers, either on the phone or in person. You want to keep track of first interviews for a possible job. You want to look at your conversion ratio of follow-up interviews. You want to keep track of active items. You want to be measuring your dings for the week, your offers that you've gotten. And then you want to perform a self-assessment of your performance each week. And using that, set up goals for the coming week. And looking at how you're stopping yourself from succeeding and how you can overcome that blockage. It's very important that you do this on a regular basis. There are lots of ways that you can manage your leads. You can do it yourself by finding a system that works for you. You can set up lists. You can use 3x5 cards. You can use an appointment book, a ledger, or a planner. Or you can use customer relationship management, such as eye contact, constant contact, Jibber Jobber, Salesforce. All of these are tools that you can use to help you manage your leads. But it's very important that you do something to help manage those leads. Next, we want to talk about some things to remember about being too aggressive. Now, this is a fine line you walk. Until you hear, don't call me anymore, or you get a letter saying we will not hire you, keep reaching out to the contact. But you want to do so in a professional and courteous manner. You don't want to become too aggressive. You don't want to be obnoxious. That is a quick way to get you a call that says, don't call anymore. But until you get a polite thing that says, we've hired someone else, we're not interested in you, or you get a letter saying the same thing, you definitely want to keep reaching out to that contact. You want to be sure to connect across lines of generation, class, and power. The value of information is independent of the source of that information. Not including everyone you know in your job search campaign will definitely delay your search. There is no telling where the diamond in the rough will come from. So leaving anyone out of this campaign will hurt you. Objections are just the beginning of the sales process. They usually appear right before someone decides they're going to help you. So don't get discouraged. It is not always necessary to overcome the objection. Your main goal is to get the advice, the ideas, the leads, and the referrals. Someone giving you an objection is a person who is paying attention, and you need to keep the conversation going. And finally, you get jobs by talking to people. I cannot stress this enough. looking online, looking at our job board, doing the on-campus interviewing, that is just one piece of this process. The other piece is you need to be talking to people about your job search. And if you are not, you're doing yourself a disservice. So finally, these are the references that we use for this presentation. I would highly recommend you acquiring these books and reading them. They have a lot of great detail that we really can't go into because it would take hours to go through all of this. So getting these books will help you through this process. It will help you get into that market where jobs are not posted, get you in front of those individuals that at that point don't really know they need to hire someone until you walk in front of them. So remember, this process is advanced networking, and it's very important that you talk to people in this process. You will be amazed at how quickly you will get what you want when you start talking to everybody that will listen. So we want to thank you for attending today's webinar.